everybody, this is Freddy with FreddyCanFly, and in today's video we are continuing on with the NiTron Build Series. Previous segments up until this point we have done main rotor, we have done the full tail rotor and tail boom installation, belt, everything, the push rod guides. One thing I wanted to show you guys actually is in the last video we kind of ended with doing the epoxy for our push rod guides and everything. And I wanted to show you what mine ended up looking like because I know I didn't get a chance to really demonstrate it. So here's my shorter one because it's a little bit easier to see. And like I was talking about how we do the bevel with the two-part epoxy on the bottom and on the top. Hopefully you guys can kind of see. I mean, it turns out super duper clean. It looks great. And trust me, the hold, this thing, I mean, I don't think I could pull this apart with my own hands. And to be fair, servos are probably stronger than a lot of human hands anyway. So just so you guys know what the finished product should look like. Again, the tail looks just like that. I got it installed under the machine. So, and then of course, we also went over the clutch stack assembly, greasing it. Again, this part comes factory assembled very well. Besides the magnets, and we'll do that in a later video. I don't have my magnets right now, so. Moving on, we're going to start tackling the mainframe. Now, guys, this is going to be a good time to make sure that you've got some of your electronical components available. For my build in particular, and I'm really excited about this because I get to finally use these, but I'm going to be using the Kyle Stacy edition, what are these, the BK servos. Let's see, DS7003 high voltage for the cyclics. Now, this machine can have full-size or mid-size servos. Okay, it's up to you for the cyclics. I'm going to go full-size on it. I'm just going to kind of make a beast out of the whole machine. I mean, I've got the components available. For my rudder, we'll use the DS7007 HV. My throttle servo is not here yet, but that'll be on the second video for the frame. It's just going to be, I think I ordered a KST servo for it. So that's going to be my electronics that I'm choosing. Go ahead and choose yours. Again, you can use mid-size or you can use full-size, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get into the frame build. Go ahead and get out the components that you're going to need. Now we're going to start with the back part of the frame and work our way forward. So get out your two sides on your frames. Now one thing that I want you guys to pay very close attention to, and we'll jump over and review this in the manual before we begin. But this layout's very unique. So starting with the elevator servo, which will be positioned in the back. Let's see if we were to position it the way it's going to be on the helicopter. So the back left frame is where you would mount your mid-sized elevator servo, right? The cutout is much smaller. If we're going with a full-size cyclic setup, then the back right side of the frame has a much larger cutout. You can kind of almost see the difference, right? One fits mid-size, one fits full-size. And then for the front two servos, the kit actually comes with modified mounting brackets if we're going mid, or just standard if we're going full. So pay close attention to that. I'll review that in the manual with you. And then also the back right side does have a couple of variances in the frame that we'll want to pay close attention to as well. So get your frames out, get those ready. Like I said, for mounting, go ahead and get the bag out that does have all of the servo mounting plates. We're going to need that. And then just other various components to get us started, guys. You're going to want to get out all the little trays that they provide you with. There's 3 of them. Those trays are going to be accompanied by a couple of little mounting brackets, which I'll show you guys in the manual. Go ahead and pop those out. What else do we got? The canopy standoffs. Go ahead and get that bag, because we're going to be doing that. And then you have your tail bell crank arm. Get that little guy out. We're going to try to just do all these little sub-components, get everything kind of done and ready, and then we can just kind of install it. You've got for your tail belt, kind of like a little tensioner system and a pulley guide. I don't know if it'd be considered a pulley guide or a tensioner, but go ahead and grab that out. It does show in the manual that we're going to be needing some of they give you this little bag with all the fuel tube grommet stuff. So go ahead and get that out because we're going to be lining the frames. And I think that right there is about it, guys. So let's jump over real quick. Let's review everything in the manual real fast. And so here we go. So again, there's going to be a bunch of the sub-assemblies that we're going to be completing. So we'll get out those brackets. These ones have the flathead screws. Pay close attention because these are recessed. So one part has like a little bevel where these will sit in. And it shouldn't be hard to miss, guys. You'll be able to see it. It's just kind of common sense there. But get this tray complete. This is going to be for the fly barless system, so get that one completed. Now, this mounts up front, to the best of my knowledge. So, again, just get it completed now, and then it'll be available when we're ready to do the front end of the machine. Pay very close attention on this back tray here, because you're going to be assembling. This is where your tail boom is going to slide in. You want to make sure that the clamps are in the right orientation. Don't get them backwards or in the wrong spot, because then you're going to go to put your tail boom in and well, it's not going to fit. So you're going to have to change it anyways. So pay close attention. Basically, just this little T that it has here where you can run some wires up. It's basically identical to the 5.5, so the electric model. That kind of will help you orientate where these little cutouts right here are kind of what you want to look for. So make sure you get that done correctly. With this particular part here, so the bell crank for the tail, or the tail arm, control arm, whatever you guys want to call it, make sure you take everything apart, clean it all with alcohol. Again, minimum 70%. I use a 90, and then we'll re-Loctite and reassemble. This will get installed into the back right side of the frame. Let's see, illustration. This is a big one here, guys. The shim. Okay, make sure that shim is there. I tried reassembling mine without it, and it binds up. So make sure that you guys have that shim. That all looks good. This one here, pretty straightforward, guys. Take it apart, clean your bolts, thread lock them, sandwich it all back together. That part's ready to be installed. Canopy standoffs, again, those are pretty straightforward. With these, just make sure you Loctite them and leave at least that 7mm of exposed shaft out of the end. These will be the front end mounts, as depicted here, of course. And then you've got your rear canopy mounts. These ones have like the little breakaway plates. So we'll get those installed. Everything else looks good there. Now here's what I wanted to look at with you guys. Okay, so backside frame left. This is where you would then mount your mini, or I call them mid-sized servos. And I'll show you guys a little bit of a small demonstration of what the mid-size will look like here in a moment. But it's basically straightforward, right? You don't need a specific mounting bracket or mounting plate or anything like that. The left side is cut out for mini or mid-size. The right side is cut out for full-size, right? So it's really easy. But this will give you your dimensions and mounting. And then while you're at it, whether you're doing mid-size or not, go ahead and take your fuel tank grommet and you know, fasten that in there. What I usually do is I actually mix up a little bit of two-part epoxy. Not a lot, just a little bit. And I'll actually kind of use a toothpick and put a little bit inside there, and then I'll kind of pressure fit it onto the frames. Just because when we go to slide the tank in, sometimes it wants to push off the mounting grommet and it just becomes a battle. So if you can kind of fix it into place, it becomes just a little bit easier. So this will be your back left side. So if you're not doing a mid-size mount, realistically all you need to do is get out the frame stiffener. Let's see here, frame stiffener L for mid-size servo. Actually, nope, I don't think we need that. I'll double check on this, but I don't think we're going to be using that. Basically, on the back left, all you need to do is get your grommet on. I'll double check on this stiffener plate if we're going to be using that or not, and I'll do it in the review here in just a moment. Now, here's what I'm going to be paying more attention to because I'm using my full-size servos. So here's our mounting. So it's going to mount from the inside, not the out. So your screws will actually be flush with the carbon fiber frame. And then you've got your mounting bolts and your little washers. Now, this is a nitro, so I'm going to be using the rubbers that go inside of the servos. Since it's not electric, we're not hard mounting. I'm going to use the little rubber grommets in the servos for the vibration and whatnot. So make sure you guys get your servo mounted accordingly. And then go ahead and install the tail crank arm. kind of gives you the location right here, just 2 flathead screws. Make sure you Loctite everything. And then this part's a little bit more unique, okay? So it gives us the fuel tank grommet here. But if you notice on the back right side frame, there's a bit of a cutout because there's like a little mounting plate thing that goes on here for the fuel tank. And we'll get into that once we get to the fuel tank assembly, of course. But from what it depicts in the manual is it wants you to leave that without the edge grommet, okay? So if you got to cut or modify, do as you need. Again, I use a little bit of 2-part epoxy on mine just to kind of fix it into place. And then after that, we're going to get into the assembly of everything. But I would like to get up to this point first, okay? So jump back with me over to the bench real fast. And what we're going to do basically is I'm going to go ahead and get everything done. I'm going to double check on that frame stiffener real fast too. So let me get everything up until this point in the manual and we'll come back and do a quick review. I'm also going to go ahead and get my full-size servo mounted in, get my fuel tank grommets on, my bell crank arm, get all the sub-assemblies done. We'll come back, we'll do a quick review, and then we'll move on from there. Hey guys, real quick as I'm going through the process here, we talked a little bit while I was reviewing over the manual about the frame stiffener. So there's 2 different frame stiffeners that it comes with. One is for the back left frame part if you're using the mid-size servo. And you'll notice that the stiffener has like a bevel, I guess you'd call that, or an extension on it, okay? And then for the back right part of the frame, there's also a stiffener without it. Okay, so here's the 2 different ones. Kind of confused me a little bit, but I'm assuming that they just have the frame stiffener to support the elevator servo or any torque or whatever it is we got going on. So since I'm not mounting this servo, I'm not going to use this at this time. Now when we assemble the frames fully, it may have me put this on. I'm not sure yet, but we're going to find out. So for now, I'm going to leave the mid-size frame stiffener off to the side. Unless you're using a mid-size servo, then go ahead and use it. In that case, use your full-size frame stiffener and leave it off to the side, okay? But it comes with a little baggie that you'll use for the... It basically looks like they bolt right into the bottom of the servo where the servo is going to mount, okay? So just look at your manual, you'll see what I'm talking about. But I just wanted to address that real quick so that you guys know when we come back for the final review what I've got going on with these. I've got all the sub-assemblies done, paying close attention to everything that we kind of just went over. Let's see, did I notice anything else? Oh, let's actually take a look at the frames real fast. Let me get all this over here to the side. So what I did with the fuel tank grommet, I'm not going to lie, this was actually kind of hard to do. It's very, very stiff rubber-like material, and to pressure fit it onto the frames, it took me a couple of minutes, and you do have to cut it to length yourself, so be very careful with that. I mean, if you miscut on accident, it's still going to house the tank, so there's no reason to get upset. But what I kind of did is I pressure fit it all the way around, and you can even see on mine, I actually misjudged just a little bit. But once my tank is in and muffler's on and everything, you're not going to actually notice that. But I did kind of have, let's see if I can get a good shot of that. There we go. I had a little bit of a goof right there, probably like a 2mm gap. I'm not too upset about it. There's only about this much left, so I can't really make a new one. If I really wanted to, I could cut a small piece and fill in the gap, but I'm not going to worry about it, guys. It's going to be hidden. The primary purpose of this is just to hold the tank into place, because once the tank gets pressurized, it's going to expand. But on the back left frame anyways, okay, it goes all the way around from what I can depict from the manual. So let's set that off to the side. And then on the back right, where we're going to be mounting our servo and also the tail bell crank and everything, there's this little notch in the frame, and in the manual it shows there's a cutout right there. So this one looks I did a little bit of a better job on this side, I think, because I was a little more prepared for working with this material. But I got everything put in, and I left the little notch out. Like I said, there's like this little metal bracket, which we'll see a little bit later, that I think has something to do with the tank. So, but there we go, guys. So that's done. Let me go ahead. I'm going to get my servo installed. and get everything else ready to go, and then we'll come back and we'll do our final review. Okay guys, so I've gotten it up until this point. As you guys can see here, I've went ahead and I've installed the tail crank arm. In the manual it does specify that it's going to assemble from the inside. Make sure you get that correct. One defect I did find is it does show like a button head screw. I don't know if it's an updated kit or if it's something they're going to be sending out in the recent kits, but these are actually like a collar or a cap screw. Mine didn't come with the button head screws. It mounts exactly the same, so it's really not that big a deal. Okay, so we got this in. Make sure 100% that it is free. If you have any binding or any notching on this particular part, you're going to have a lot of tail issues. So revisit your setup at that point. For the servo, one thing I want to address, and I'm going to take a look at the manual here in just a quick moment. But so this is the back right-hand side of the frame, okay? The elevator servo, if you're using full size, is on the right side. It's going to mount from the inside. If you're using the back left-hand side of the frame, which would be this one, then your elevator servo is still going to mount from the inside, but it'll just be on the opposing side of the frames, okay? One thing to take into consideration though, in the manual, for the elevator servo, it shows some mounting bolts, but it actually shows some washers and then some locking nuts that go onto here. My kit did not have that. Instead, what it actually did is it provided me an extra set of these. You can see the black mounting servo brackets here. This is a nitro. Yes, I know that we're used to using the rubbers that come with all the servos for the vibrations and everything. I confirmed with the sources and the people that created this kit, your servos are actually going to be hard mounted. Okay, so you don't have to use the rubber grommets. You do not have to use the copper inserts. So we're going to hard mount this like it was an electric machine. And to be fair, I mean the flybarless system is going to be all the way up here in the front, which I understand the motor's here. But nowadays a lot of the flybarless systems do have a lot of the anti-vibration and everything built into them. And with the bolts and the screws that come with this kit, they're just not long enough to support the rubbers and the copper inserts. So at this time I'm hard mounting my servos. I know we talked earlier about using the rubber grommets and everything. So anyways, that's how mine turned out. Mounts really good. Make sure you have even spacing on the servos too. When you hard mount your servos, I like to make sure that there's like the same amount of light gap, if that makes sense, from the top to the bottom. But so we got that done. I got the gas tank grommet installed. Again, leaving this space on this side. And then also, like I said, I made a small goof on this one, but I'm just going to leave it for now. I can find a way to clean it up later. So that one's all good to go. So once we get to this point, guys, you have the elevator servo installed, whether you're going mid-size or full-size, back left side of the frame or back right side of the frame, whichever you choose. Just make sure everything is done accordingly up until this point. And then essentially all we got to do is we're going to start to put on all the sub-assemblies onto the sides of the frames. And it's going to have us start to build onto the front portion as well, and we'll start installing more servos. But before we do that, I want to visit the manual one more time just so we can recap. So jump over to the manual with me real fast. And so this is kind of where we left off, right? So we've gotten everything done up until this point. Like we just kind of talked about, in the manual it shows the locking nuts and then the washers for the elevator servo. Don't worry about those at this point in time. You have those mounting brackets. One thing I wanted to address also is the frame stiffener, okay? So you have one for the right side and the left side. If you remember, we talked about earlier on the mini size servo, we have no way to mount it right now because we're not using the mid-size servo, but keep this bracket off to the side, because when we go and install all of our sub-assemblies, like the pulley system and everything, it's going to use these longer bolts that are provided, and we're still going to use the frame stiffener on both the left and right hand side. So just kind of watch out for that later. And the same could be said like vice versa, right? If you had a mid-size servo, then you use the mounting bracket, or I'm sorry, the frame stiffener bracket, but then you'd be with the right hand side, you'd set that to the side until we get to mounting all the sub-assemblies. Okay, so everything looks good up until this point. One thing also to take into consideration as we move forward, guys, is you're going to want to get out, there's a little baggie with frame supports, right? There's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, there's 4 different frame supports. There is a fuel tank support and also a landing gear support. You can see in the manual kind of the way they look visibly. Each bag has 2, so there's actually 2 fuel tank supports and 2 landing gear supports. Get those out, get them ready, and what I'd basically like to do is, moving forward, it's going to move us up to the front end. So let's focus on the back side for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get everything assembled up until this point right here. We'll come back, we'll do one final review, and then within the next video series, we'll move into the front. And that's going to involve the tail servo, the throttle servo, and then we'll work our way up into the cyclic servo. So jump back real quick over to the bench with me real fast. Let me go ahead and get everything done up until that point. We'll come back, we'll do a final review, and then we'll continue on with the build. Hey guys, real quick, as I'm finishing my assembly, I wanted to bring one thing to your attention in case you've already ran into this. So, with the frame stiffeners being included within this kit, you'll notice the little baggie that came with the 2 different frame stiffeners. You've got a small little bag that's actually got longer cap screws. So it doesn't actually specify this in the manual, but you're going to want to replace any of the bolts that are going into the sub-assemblies, or the frame pieces with these longer bolts. So for example, right now I'm installing in the tail brackets, right? In the baggies, you got a smaller screw that came already screwed into the little platforms there. Well, on this side here, you can see there's 3 different spots on the frame stiffener that actually they heighten the frame, right? So this screw will not work in this spot. So what you're going to want to actually do is just set these to the side and get out that little baggie, which are 6 screws, 3 for each side, and anywhere that you contact the sub-assemblies on the frame inside. So I think this one right here is going to be for the tail bench, can't talk today, the tail belt tensioning system. You've got this one here for the actual tail boom assembly, and I think this one down here might be for, it's kind of hard to say, this actually might be for the bottom part of the tail. So make sure you use these 3 longer cap screws for the frame stiffeners, and then you can actually just set these other shorter ones to the side, just use them as spare parts. I just wanted to address that real quick as I move forward with the assembly. So anyways, let me get all this completed. I just wanted to address that real fast. Make sure you use these, that way you guys don't end up shortening your screws or rounding anything out. So let me get all this done, we'll come back and do a final review. Okay guys, so I've went ahead and I have finished the assembly. Now take in mind, as you guys are looking at this, I kind of skipped ahead just a little bit and I installed the back left side to the back right side, which you can absolutely do. Everything can be Loctited. You don't have to worry about disassembling at this point. On the back right side, you guys can see here the notch that you have in the frame, and also the notch that we left in the housing for the tank. I actually realized that it allows you to slide the tank right in there. I mean, you're still going to have to pressure fit it a little bit, but then it's got a mounting piece that's going to come on and it's going to lock it right in there, which I think is pretty dang cool. A lot of machines don't have that. You have to kind of just pressure fit it and jam it in there, and then it actually has the bubble up top that holds it into place. So that's a pretty unique design on the NiTron, which I'm pretty excited about. The frame stiffeners, which we've been talking about throughout this process here. Let me see if I can move this. So again, my kit came with some longer bolts. Pay attention to which bolts go into which inside pieces, right, your inner assemblies. Make sure you use the longer bolts. Now we are missing, so there's 2 bolts left out of the assembly, and it looks like it's going to be on these bottom pieces here. And I'm going to say that it's safe to assume that that's going to be for the servo cage and also the part that holds the main shaft. So we're probably going to have longer bolts on the bottom but shorter bolts up top. We've got our rear canopy mounting posts on. And for my servo, I just kind of tucked the wire. I used a little wraparound cable tie thing there, and just kind of tuck it in the back for now. When you guys do your rear post, if you have any issues, I actually found that, so I have this tool. If you're a nitro flyer, you probably have this exact same tool, but if you use the 7/16 side, it actually fits perfectly on here, and they actually have the, I don't know what you'd want to call it, but the nut design, if you will, engraved onto there, so you can actually counter torque it, and it fits on there. You can wrench it down. That all works. Take in mind these are breakaways as well, so make sure those are fit appropriately. Make sure that your belt tensioning system here rides nice and smooth. You don't have to grease or lube it at this point in time, so we're good there. And for the most part, guys, we are ready to move forward. One quick thing to talk about as well, in the manual, let me double check here, it labels this part as a fuel tank support. So this middle piece here, you'll notice in the frame that it's actually an oblong shape, or an oval, if you will. So it looks as though this piece is made to be adjusted forward or backwards. So I did not Loctite this one piece. Everything else on here did receive the Loctite treatment. So everything else should be good to go. For your tail boom, again, this is a really unique design. Most machines, they do it like straight on. But with the Tron design, I don't know if you guys have had a 5.5 yet, but to tighten down the tail boom once you put it in, it's actually angled. So you actually come in at an angle. So let's see, where are they at? Right here. So your bolts right here, I'm going to recommend that you do not fully tighten them down because you don't want to bend or distort the clamp here. Just leave them kind of, you can't really finger tighten them, but put your tool in, just kind of tighten them down and just leave it alone. Because when you go to slide the boom in, you're going to have to loosen them up all the way and probably kind of flex your frames just a little bit. But you don't want to ruin the integrity of the clamp at this point in time, so leave that part alone. Other than that, guys, I think we are ready to move on to the front assembly and mate everything together and continue on with the build so we can get this thing up into the air. So as always, thank you so much for watching. Feel free to comment or subscribe, and remember, my friends, if Freddy can fly, so can you.